today we want to deal with that, fatherlessness. We have an epidemic in our nation today, and sadly, the evangelical church in many ways doesn't necessarily seem to fare better. And so, yeah, I just want to talk about that. And I thought, we could begin, you and I were talking as we were prepping a little bit, we could talk with root causes. Why is there so much fatherlessness in society today?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A lot of it, I think, it's really interesting societally in America when you look at, say, like the 1960s. So how much changed in the 1960s? You've got a number of things. Lyndon Johnson with his, Papa Big Government acts that went through Congress and were passed in the 60s. Those had a huge bearing on the welfare state, which had a huge bearing on really replacing fathers. And you see this especially in the Black community. Before the 1960s, Black fatherlessness was actually at a lower rate than among the white community. So, but post-welfare state, then you have fatherlessness soaring. And I think you can make an argument, Thomas Sowell and other people have certainly made this argument, that the Black communities were being targeted for a lot of the welfare. And again, we've seen this play out. They're trying to court voters, all this sort of thing. But you see this thrust and this push for the state really to replace the father. Even today, you see it with stuff like Black Lives Matter, in that, obviously affecting the Black community. But Black Lives Matter, they're against nuclear families. But originally, when that all that stuff became prominent in 2020, the one thing that they were especially against was fatherhood. So they would talk about non-nuclear families. They really did not appreciate this idea of any sort of patriarchal father figure of the home. So again, the state is designed to replace that. I think you also have a lot of legal factors. 1964, you have Ronald Reagan, and you've got the really first divorce laws going through with the no-fault divorce. So 1964, Reagan is the governor of California. He passes that. Most people are usually shocked, by the way, when you find out that was Reagan. He would go on to say it was one of the things he regretted doing, and probably as a conservative for really good reason. But fundamentally, what you've had because of those legal changes, it's very easy to divorce your husband. You see it in the red pill and sort of the men going their own way movements today, right? Where they're starting to recognize, like, why is it that a wife can cheat on her husband, she can leave him, take the children, and he has to pay for the whole thing? He may not actually even, biblically, righteously, he may not be at fault at all, but he's still going to bear the burden. I think some of those things have certainly impacted culture. And then I think at the church level, you can look at that and you can say, well, you really have, this is the way I look at it. Okay, in Exodus, you have the golden calf and you have Moses. There's an apostasy that happens, and then immediately the people fall into sexual immorality. Well, I mean, you can look at the 1960s, that's the sexual immorality, but there was an apostasy that happened first in America. And you can see this in the post, and we call them the greatest generation, but I think they were already struggling. And the result is 1960s, the boomer generation, really well known for the, breaking down of traditional sexual mores in society. And so all those things too are contributing to, you have skyrocketing rates of children being born out of wedlock, really a huge factor in the breakdown of the family.